In the quiet mountains of southern Argentina, far away from the noisy cities and crowded places, a small observatory sat under a vast sky full of stars. It was a place where a single scientist spent most of her days and nights watching the universe, hoping to understand its secrets. She was someone who loved the quiet, who preferred the company of distant stars to the busy world below. One night, while scanning the space around Earth, she noticed something very strange, something no one expected. For years, she had been studying signals coming from deep space, radio waves, bursts of energy, patterns that might tell a story from far beyond our solar system. But this time, the signal was different. It didn't come from far away. Instead, it came from just above Earth's atmosphere somewhere in orbit. And it wasn't random noise or a simple beep. It had a pattern, a rhythm, almost like a language. She stared at the screen, her heart beating faster. The signal repeated again and again with small changes each time, almost as if it were trying to say something. It was not like anything she had ever seen before. She tried to decode it, to understand if it was a message, but the patterns were complex, layered with strange codes that didn't match any known human system. For days, she kept watching. She recorded the signals, sending copies to her trusted contacts in space agencies around the world. But instead of excitement or support, she was met with silence. No one wanted to talk about it. Officially, there was no strange signal in orbit. She felt a chill run down her spine. Was someone hiding this? Was this a secret she wasn't supposed to know? One evening, as the sun was setting behind the Andes, she received a message from an unexpected source. A former engineer who once worked for a space agency. He was retired now, living quietly but still keeping an eye on space activities. He had heard about her discovery and shared something that would change everything. According to him, this mysterious object had been observed before. Not recently, but decades ago. He sent her old data, telemetry readings collected since the late 1970s. This data showed strange movements of an unknown object in Earth's orbit, something large, dark, and almost impossible to explain. The object never moved like a satellite or a spaceship that humans had built. It stayed mostly in one place as if it was watching. As she studied this new information, memories of old rumors and secret missions started to come back. During the Cold War, when the United States and the Soviet Union were racing to dominate space, some missions had disappeared without explanation. One of those was a Soviet probe launched in the late 1970s. Officially, it was lost due to technical failure, but the data suggested something else. The probe had passed close to this strange object and then vanished. There were even reports from old space programs of strange communications interference during those missions. No one had talked about it openly. The Cold War secrecy meant many things stayed hidden, locked away in government vaults. But now, decades later, these old stories started to resurface. Could it be that this object, the strange signal, and the lost missions were connected? The scientist was not the only one curious. Around the world, other people had noticed strange things too. Pilots flying high above Earth sometimes saw unusual shapes in the sky. Metallic, shining objects that didn't look like any airplane or satellite. Technicians working on space programs reported anomalies in their instruments, things that didn't add up. Some even whispered about something else out there, something watching from the shadows of orbit. The silence from governments and space agencies only made the mystery deeper. If this object was harmless, why hide it? Why deny its existence? The more the scientists dug, the more it seemed like someone wanted to keep the truth from the public. But what was this object? Why was it there? And who or what was sending the strange signal? As the days passed, the scientist became obsessed with these questions. She spent long nights staring at the stars, hoping to catch more signals, more clues. She knew she was on the edge of discovering something big. Something that could change how humans understood their place in the universe. One night, she noticed the signal changed again. This time it included patterns that looked like fragments of human speech but twisted, altered. It was as if an intelligence was trying to mimic human language, to communicate, but through a lens completely foreign to Earth's ways of speaking. She realized that whoever or whatever was behind this signal had been there for a long time. They had been watching Earth quietly, hiding just out of reach in the calm darkness of orbit. The truth was bigger than she had imagined. This was not a simple alien encounter or a space anomaly. This was a presence, an ancient fleet hidden in plain sight. It was as if the Earth was never alone in the sky. The story of that discovery did not stay quiet for long. Whispers spread through underground scientific communities and online forums, where people shared ideas and secret knowledge. Some called this mysterious presence the Draconian Fleet, a name taken from old legends and speculative stories about powerful, ancient beings who controlled space beyond human reach. Many people didn't believe it at first. How could a fleet so large and advanced hide in Earth's orbit without anyone seeing it clearly? But the scientists' data was solid. The signals were real. The lost missions were real. The unexplained sightings were real. The more people learned, the more questions arose. Why would such a fleet stay so close to Earth but never actually land or make direct contact? What were they waiting for? Watching over what? And why was humanity left unaware for so long? As the scientist prepared to share her findings with the world, she faced pressure. Powerful groups tried to silence her, warning her that some truths were too dangerous to reveal. But she knew that hiding the truth only made it harder to prepare for what might come next. This was only the beginning. The universe was far stranger and more complex than anyone had dared to believe. And Earth was just one small part of a much larger story, one where ancient watchers had never truly left. That night, looking up at the sky filled with stars, she felt both awe and fear. The peaceful blue planet beneath her seemed fragile and tiny against the vast unknown, and somewhere, just above her, the silent fleet waited, watching, listening, never leaving. The story of the Draconian fleet, the lost missions, and the mysterious signal was just beginning to unfold, and the world was about to change forever. The strange signals and mysterious object in Earth's orbit had already stirred curiosity, but to understand what was really happening, it was important to look back, decades back, when space exploration was still young, and secrets were kept deep inside government walls. In the late 1970s, the world was locked in the Cold War. Two powerful countries, locked in a silent battle for control of space. Every mission, every satellite launch was a move on a giant chessboard watched by millions. It was a time filled with hope and fear, hope for discovery, and fear of what the other side might do. During this tense period, a Soviet spacecraft known as Cosmos 347 was launched. Officially, it was a routine mission, a small probe sent to study Earth's upper atmosphere. But things didn't go as planned. Soon after launch, Cosmos 347 vanished. The mission was declared lost due to a supposed technical failure, but the details didn't add up. Some people who worked behind the scenes started to whisper about something else, a strange encounter that no one was supposed to talk about. Records, later partially declassified, showed that Cosmos 347 had come dangerously close to an unknown object in orbit. This wasn't just a piece of space debris or a natural rock. It was something large, moving strangely, almost like a ship, and it seemed to be watching. At the same time, U.S. spy satellites had problems too. One of the satellites stopped sending signals right when Cosmos 347 disappeared. No official explanation was given, but rumors said the satellite had seen the same object before it went silent. Years later, some retired engineers and space program veterans started sharing their memories in quiet interviews, far from cameras and reporters. They talked about strange signals, strange shadows, and odd electronic interference that no one could explain. One technician remembered a day when the instrument suddenly stopped working and strange noises appeared on the radio channels. Everyone was told it was a simple glitch, but deep down, they knew it was something more. This secret was locked away, hidden behind official stories and silence. But the data was there. Telemetry logs, satellite images, mission reports, little pieces of a puzzle that didn't fit together. Slowly, a clearer picture began to form. Decades ago, during the height of space competition, something unknown had come close to Earth. Something that neither side dared to admit. The probe that vanished, the silent satellite. The strange interference all pointed to one thing: the presence of a massive object in orbit that had been there for a long time. What was this object? Some said it looked like a huge winged structure, almost like a massive ship with sharp edges that caught the sunlight. Others described it as dark, almost invisible against the blackness of space, but large enough to block the view of the moon for a brief moment. These descriptions came from old photos taken by space telescopes, long forgotten or kept secret. For those who worked in space programs during those years, it was an unsolved mystery, something that scared even the bravest scientists and engineers. They didn't know what it was, but they knew it wasn't made by humans. And whatever it was not moving away. Despite the fear and confusion, the official stories never changed. Cosmos 347 was lost due to failure. The spy satellite had technical issues. There was nothing unusual in orbit. The public was never told the truth. Meanwhile, in the years after, more satellites and space missions noticed strange signals and shadows. But no one talked about them openly. Governments and space agencies continued to keep secrets, treating these events as top-level classified information. In some quiet meetings, military officers spoke about non-terrestrial objects in orbit. The name Draconian Fleet started to appear in secret documents. It was a code name used to describe a group of unknown crafts or structures that had been observed, but never identified. One of the most shocking stories came from a retired Soviet cosmonaut. He once spoke in a private gathering about how during a mission, their spacecraft was suddenly warned off by an unknown force. They received a message not in words, but through strange signals that made their instruments go crazy. The message was clear: do not approach a certain part of orbit. After that, they changed their flight path and returned home without completing their original mission. This story was never officially confirmed, but became part of the growing web of strange encounters that pointed to the same truth. There was something up there that no one wanted to face. Back then, the world was too busy with politics and fear of nuclear war to focus on the mysteries in space. But the truth was waiting, hidden just above the atmosphere, watching silently. Years later, as space exploration became more open, civilian scientists and amateur astronomers began noticing unexplained objects too. Strange lights, unusual movements, and signals that didn't match any known satellite or spacecraft. But even as more people looked up, the biggest secret stayed hidden. Some people tried to explain the object away as natural phenomena, space debris, reflections from satellites, or technical errors in data. But those explanations didn't satisfy everyone. The shapes were too big, the patterns too complex, and the signals too intelligent. As the decades passed, this presence became part of a strange new reality. It wasn't just an object, it was a fleet, a collection of massive crafts that had never left Earth's orbit. They stayed hidden in the shadows of the sky, silent watchers of a world they seemed to consider primitive. Scientists who dared to speak about these things faced pressure. Their research was blocked, their findings dismissed. Some were warned to stop their investigations. Others lost their jobs or were forced into silence. The mystery became a secret that governments worked hard to protect. But the truth couldn't be hidden forever. The more people who learned about the lost probe, the silent satellites, and the strange signals, the more the story spread. It became a quiet revolution among those who studied space and believed in the possibility that Earth was not alone in its orbit. This past, hidden in secret files and forgotten memories, showed that the story was much bigger than anyone expected. The Draconian Fleet, or whatever the unknown presence was, had been here for a long time. It had been watching during the height of the Cold War, silently observing humanity's first steps into space, and the world was just beginning to realize it. The past and present were connected by this mysterious fleet. It wasn't just a story of lost missions or strange signals. It was the story of Earth's place in the universe and the silent watchers who never left orbit. No one knew what their purpose was. Were they protectors, observers, or something else entirely? But one thing was clear: the Draconian Fleet was real, and it had been here all along, waiting. The mysteries of the Cold War space missions, the lost Soviet probe, and the silent American satellites were just pieces of a larger puzzle. Each piece brought the world closer to understanding a truth that had been hidden for decades. And as more people looked up at the sky, more signals were picked up. More shadows were seen moving silently against the stars. The story was far from over. The secrets of the past were unlocking a future filled with questions. The questions that humanity had to face. What did it mean to share space with an unknown presence? How long had they been watching? And what would happen when the watchers finally decided to reveal themselves? For now, the fleet stayed hidden in the calm darkness just above the blue planet, and the world kept turning, unaware that history had already been written in the silent shadows of orbit. In the years after the strange signals and the lost missions, many people around the world began to notice something unusual in the skies. It wasn't just scientists in observatories or space agencies. Ordinary people, pilots flying high above, engineers working on satellites, and even regular folks with telescopes in their backyards, started to see things that didn't make sense. One retired pilot spoke quietly to a small group of trusted friends about what he had experienced during a high-altitude flight years ago. He described a strange encounter far above the clouds, where he suddenly saw metallic shapes moving in formation. They were not airplanes or known satellites. They shimmered in the sunlight, their surfaces smooth and reflective, almost like living creatures made of metal. He remembered how his instruments went haywire for a few minutes. Radios crackled with static, and his radar showed strange readings. He tried to follow the shapes, but they moved too fast and then disappeared. The pilot said he felt something strange, like he was being watched. It was an experience he never shared publicly before, fearing ridicule or worse. In another part of the world, a technician working on a space station's communication systems noticed irregular data transmissions. Signals appeared and disappeared without explanation. The technician tried to investigate but was told to stop looking into it by superiors. Later, he learned that parts of the data logs had been deleted from official records. He was left wondering what was being hidden from the public. Meanwhile, a group of amateur astronomers gathered regularly to share their observations. They exchanged stories about strange lights moving in unusual patterns near the International Space Station. One member claimed to have photographed a dark object, unlike any known satellite or space debris, slowly drifting in orbit. The picture was blurry, but enough to spark debates and curiosity. Even in countries with less developed space programs, pilots and engineers reported strange experiences. In one instance, a pilot flying over a remote desert saw a formation of glowing objects silently following his plane. He later described the objects as looking like large wings made of light, moving smoothly and perfectly synchronized. At first, these accounts were dismissed as illusions, equipment errors, or misidentifications of natural phenomena, but the number of stories grew too large to ignore. Different countries had people telling similar tales, all pointing to something strange happening just outside Earth's atmosphere. The silence from official space agencies only added to the mystery. Many who tried to ask questions or share their experiences faced skepticism or were ignored. Some were warned to stop talking about what they saw. It felt as if the truth was being carefully hidden. One retired engineer, who had worked on satellite tracking systems, revealed in a private conversation that during the 1980s and 1990s, multiple satellites had recorded strange formations moving in low Earth orbit. The movements were too precise and coordinated to be random debris or natural objects. Yet, no public reports ever mentioned these anomalies. This engineer said he believed these objects were part of a larger fleet, silent watchers that had never left Earth's orbit. They were not like anything humanity had built, and their origin was unknown. The term Draconian started to appear again in secret briefings and classified documents describing these unknown crafts. It was a code name, one that suggested power, control, and something ancient. According to some leaked files, this fleet was believed to be made up of large, winged ships moving together in formation, silently observing Earth. These eyewitness accounts painted a picture of a quiet presence that had been orbiting Earth for decades, watching but never landing, always just out of reach. What made the story even more intriguing was a claim from a former astronaut who spoke anonymously to a small group of trusted individuals. This astronaut said that during a mission in the 1980s, the crew was suddenly warned not to enter a certain part of space. Their instruments began to malfunction when approaching the area, and strange signals interfered with communication. The crew was told that some unknown entities controlled that region of space and that humans were not welcome there. The astronaut described feeling an unspoken fear among the crew, a sense that they had crossed into forbidden territory. Though the details were vague and hard to verify, this story added to the growing belief that Earth's orbit was home to more than just human-made satellites and debris. Around the world, stories like these kept surfacing, each one adding pieces to a puzzle that no one wanted to solve openly. The witnesses were ordinary people, pilots, engineers, astronauts, who simply shared what they saw and experienced. They weren't looking for fame or attention. Many kept their stories secret for years. fearing disbelief or worse. But the truth had a way of coming out, even in whispers. As the years passed, these encounters became more frequent. Technology improved, allowing more people to observe space. Civilian satellites, amateur radio operators, and hobbyist astronomers all started to pick up signals and images that didn't fit with known objects. Radio operators reported bursts of strange codes, sometimes resembling language but unlike any human speech. Amateur telescopes caught glimpses of moving shapes, too large and structured to be random. Some tried to make sense of it by comparing these sightings to ancient myths and legends. Stories from different cultures spoke of beings from the stars, watchers who came down from the sky but never stayed. These ancient tales, once thought to be myths, suddenly seemed connected to what people were seeing now. Was it possible that Earth had always been watched by a hidden fleet, a silent presence waiting and observing human progress? Many believed that the Draconian fleet, or whatever it truly was, chose not to reveal itself openly because Earth was still considered primitive. Humanity was not yet ready to know the full truth. The idea of a primitive zone suggested that Earth was under observation, much like a wildlife preserve where animals are watched but not disturbed. The fleet stayed in orbit, monitoring quietly, allowing humanity to grow and evolve without interference. This raised important questions. Who were the Watchers? Why had they come? What did they want? No one had clear answers, but the stories told by those who had seen the fleet or its ships gave a sense of awe mixed with fear. The Watchers were powerful, ancient, and patient. The pilot who saw the metallic shapes in the sky said it was like watching creatures from another world, alive, intelligent, and careful not to scare humans. The technician who found his data, logs erased, believed someone wanted to keep these things, secret to avoid panic. The anonymous astronaut's warning felt like a reminder that humans were still visitors in space, not the owners. These stories were not just about strange sightings. They were about people who had come face to face with the unknown and lived to tell the tale. Their experiences showed that the Draconian fleet was not just a legend. It was real. It was there. It was watching. And for all humanity knew, it had always been there. As the world moved forward, exploring space and dreaming of the stars, the silent fleet continued its watch. Neither friend nor enemy, it remained a mystery in Earth's orbit, a reminder that the universe was far bigger and more complex than anyone could imagine. The stories of pilots, engineers, and astronauts reminded humanity that there were still things beyond understanding, waiting patiently in the shadows of space, and the Watchers were waiting too. As the years passed, more people started to realize that something unusual was happening just above the Earth's surface, in the space that humans called orbit. But even with all the advanced technology and space exploration, the truth was still hidden in the shadows. The mysterious fleet, known by some as the Draconian fleet, remained silent, watching from the darkness. Many people who studied space wondered what the fleet's true intentions were. Were they watching out of curiosity, like scientists observing a new species? Or were they waiting for something, preparing for a moment when they would finally reveal themselves? Some of the people who worked in space agencies felt uneasy. They saw signals and objects on their monitors that didn't match anything humans had built. Yet every time they reported these observations, they were told to keep quiet or ignore what they saw. Official explanations blamed technical glitches or natural phenomena. But deep inside, many knew those excuses were not the full story. One scientist, who had spent decades analyzing signals from space, told close friends that the fleet seemed to have advanced technology far beyond human understanding. The signals weren't random. They were complex, showing patterns that suggested intelligence and purpose. It was as if the fleet was trying to communicate, but in a way humans could not yet fully understand. This idea raised important questions. If they wanted to communicate, why had they waited so long? Why had they stayed silent all these years? Some experts believed that the fleet was testing humanity, watching how humans grew and developed. They thought the fleet might be like a teacher watching a student, waiting to see if Earth's people were ready to learn bigger lessons about the universe. Others thought the fleet was guarding something. Maybe there was something on Earth or nearby in space that was important, and the fleet's presence was to protect it. This theory was supported by reports of restricted areas in space, where human spacecraft were warned to stay away. These zones were like invisible borders, places humans were told not to cross, though no official reason was ever given. Some space missions were suddenly canceled or rerouted without explanation. It made many wonder what secrets were hidden just beyond sight. The presence of the Draconian fleet also made people rethink Earth's history. If such an advanced fleet had been watching for decades or maybe even centuries, how much did they influence human development? Ancient myths and stories from many cultures around the world told of beings from the stars, sometimes called gods or angels, who came to Earth and taught humans important skills. Some believed these stories were more than myths. They might be memories of the fleet's presence long ago. For example, old carvings and paintings found in remote places showed strange shapes in the sky, objects that looked like flying ships or creatures with wings. Could these ancient images be proof that Earth was never truly alone? Some people thought the fleet might be waiting for humans to reach a certain level of technology or understanding before making full contact. Perhaps they wanted to see if humanity could handle the truth without fear or chaos. This idea was both exciting and frightening. It suggested that humans were being watched and judged, their future tied to a mysterious group beyond the stars. At the same time, there were stories of secret meetings between world leaders and unknown visitors. Whispers spoke of agreements made in hidden places, where humans promised to keep the fleet's presence secret in exchange for knowledge or protection. No proof existed of these meetings, but the rumors spread quickly. Some believed that governments knew far more than they revealed, and that many of the strange signals and sightings were part of a hidden agreement. For people outside of those circles, the mystery remained a puzzle to solve. Scientists, pilots, and astronomers continued to collect data, hoping one day to understand the truth. Among them was a group of independent researchers who formed a small network to share findings. They compared notes about strange objects seen in orbit, unusual radio signals, and unexplained interference in communication systems. They also studied old space missions looking for clues about the fleet. They found that some missions had recorded images of dark winged shapes moving silently through space. The images were blurry but enough to fuel more questions. One researcher described how their satellite's camera had captured a large craft shaped like a bird or dragon with wide, sharp wings. The craft had moved slowly, almost gracefully, then disappeared behind the Earth's shadow. These findings were never officially confirmed but inspired hope that the truth was out there, waiting to be discovered. Despite the challenges, these independent researchers believed that sharing information was the key to understanding the Draconian fleet. They hoped that if enough people paid attention, the fleet's secrets would no longer be hidden. Their work reminded everyone that science is about curiosity and courage, about asking difficult questions and refusing to accept easy answers. Meanwhile, ordinary people continued to report strange experiences. A farmer in a quiet village saw bright lights moving slowly across the night sky, unlike any airplane or star. A fisherman noticed odd reflections on the water that did not match the moon or stars. Even children spoke of strange dreams about winged creatures watching from above. These small, everyday experiences added to the growing sense that the world was more mysterious than most believed. The Draconian fleet, whatever it truly was, had become part of the world's story. It was no longer just a secret of governments or space agencies. It was a question for all humanity. What did it mean to live on a planet watched by silent visitors from the stars? How would the world change when the fleet's presence was fully revealed? Would humanity welcome the visitors or fear them? These questions remained unanswered. But the feeling of wonder and possibility grew stronger. People everywhere looked up at the night sky, feeling both small and connected to something vast and unknown. The silent watchers in orbit seemed to remind humanity that the universe was full of mysteries waiting to be explored, and that Earth was just one small part of a much larger story. And in the quiet darkness above, the Draconian fleet waited, patient, watching, ready for the moment when humanity would finally be ready to meet the unknown. Even though the Draconian fleet remained hidden in Earth's orbit, its presence had a growing impact on the people who looked up at the sky and wondered what else was out there. More and more stories began to spread, not just from scientists or pilots, but from everyday people who felt that something unseen was watching over them. One of the most powerful things about these stories was how they connected people across the world. A teacher in a small town, a mechanic in a big city, a farmer in a remote village. They all shared similar experiences of strange lights or unexplained signals coming from the sky. These stories created a quiet community of believers, people who were no longer afraid to say that Earth was not alone. The idea that something large and intelligent was watching Earth made many people think differently about their place in the universe. It made them feel part of a bigger story, something ancient and mysterious. For some, the fleet represented hope. Maybe these watchers were guardians, keeping Earth safe from dangers beyond human knowledge. Maybe they were waiting for humanity to reach a higher level of understanding, ready to share their wisdom and technology. For others, the fleet was a warning. Their silence and secrecy suggested power, control, and perhaps a reason to be cautious. What if the Watchers were not friends? What if they had their own plans that humans could not understand? These feelings of hope and fear mixed together in the hearts of many. The unknown presence became a symbol of the future's great possibilities and great dangers. As people talked more openly about the fleet, questions began to arise about how governments and space agencies handled the truth. Why had the presence of such a fleet been kept secret for so long? What else had been hidden? A few brave journalists and writers started to investigate, piecing together public and leaked information from decades of space exploration. They found records of lost missions, unexplained satellite failures, and strange signals, all pointing to the same secret presence in orbit. These reports sparked public interest, but official sources continued to deny or ignore the claims. It was as if admitting the fleet's existence would change everything about how humans saw themselves and their place in the cosmos. At the same time, scientists began to push for more openness and cooperation in space research. They argued that understanding the Draconian fleet was not just a government secret, it was a question for all humanity. With the rise of new space programs and private companies exploring the final frontier, there was hope that the truth would come out. New satellites, advanced telescopes, and deep space missions promised better data and clearer pictures of what was really out there. Some researchers even proposed sending peaceful signals to the fleet, hoping to start a conversation. They believed that communication was the key to understanding and cooperation, but there were challenges. Without official support, these ideas were difficult to carry out. Many scientists faced pressure to stay silent, and those who tried to reveal secrets often faced opposition. Meanwhile, people's personal experiences continued to grow. More pilots reported strange encounters during flights, metallic shapes moving smoothly and silently, unexpected signals interfering with communications, and sudden changes in weather near certain areas. One pilot described how a large, winged craft appeared near his plane during a night flight. He said the craft didn't make any noise and moved with incredible speed and grace. His instruments flickered, and for a moment he felt like he was being tested. Stories like these were rare but powerful. They reminded everyone that the fleet was not just a theory, but a real presence in Earth's skies. In some places, the fleet seemed to inspire wonder and creativity. Artists painted pictures of winged ships and mysterious watchers. Writers imagined stories of peaceful encounters and shared knowledge. Musicians created songs about the silent watchers and the mysteries of space. For many, the fleet became a symbol of curiosity and hope. It reminded people that despite all the challenges on Earth, there was still something greater waiting to be discovered. But the fleet also raised difficult questions. What would happen if the Watchers finally revealed themselves? How would humanity react? Would there be fear, conflict, or cooperation? These questions were not easy to answer. The unknown nature of the fleet made it hard to predict what the future held. Some believed that contact was inevitable, that as humans reached farther into space, the Watchers would make themselves known. Others thought the fleet might wait much longer, observing silently while humanity grew and changed. In the meantime, people continued their lives, looking up at the night sky with a mix of wonder, curiosity, and sometimes fear. Families told stories to their children about the stars and the silent watchers. Teachers included the mystery and lessons about space and exploration. Communities gathered to watch the sky during special events, hoping to catch a glimpse of the unknown. The Draconian fleet became part of human culture, a reminder that the universe was full of mysteries and that Earth was just one small part of something much larger. For those who believed in the fleet, it was a call to keep exploring, to stay curious, and to be ready for whatever might come. The watchers in orbit remained silent but ever present, patiently observing humanity's journey, and the story of the Draconian fleet was far from over. For many years, the presence of the mysterious Draconian fleet in Earth's orbit remained a quiet secret known only to a few. But as time went on, more people became aware that humanity was not alone in the sky. This awareness grew slowly, like a soft whisper turning into a clear voice. Many people began to understand that the universe was much bigger and more complex than they had ever imagined. The Draconian fleet was a reminder that Earth was just one small piece of a much larger puzzle. Some people wondered if this silent fleet had been watching over Earth for thousands of years. Maybe the Watchers had seen humanity rise from simple beginnings to build great cities, explore the oceans, and finally reach for the stars. Others believed the fleet was a sign of what was still to come, a glimpse of a future where humans and beings from other worlds might meet, learn from each other, and explore the universe together. But until that moment arrived, the Watchers kept their distance. They stayed in orbit, watching quietly without interfering in human affairs. This silence made people both curious and uneasy. Why watch and not speak? Why wait and not act? Many thought that perhaps the Watchers understood something important about humanity's readiness. Maybe they saw that humans still had much to learn, about themselves, about peace, and about the responsibility that comes with knowledge. In the meantime, people all over the world continued to look up at the night sky. They saw the stars, the planets, and the endless blackness beyond. They felt connected to something bigger, something mysterious. This connection inspired people in many ways. Scientists pushed harder to explore space. Artists painted and wrote about the unknown. Children dreamed of becoming astronauts or discovering new worlds. The Draconian fleet became a symbol of hope and curiosity. It reminded people that there was still much to discover and understand. It taught them to be patient, to stay humble, and to keep asking questions. Even though the fleet remained unseen, its presence was felt in hearts and minds around the world. It was like a silent guardian watching over humanity's journey. Some believed that one day the Watchers would finally reveal themselves. That moment might bring great change, new knowledge, new challenges, and new opportunities. But for now, the story of the Draconian fleet was a mystery. It was a story of patience, watching, and waiting, and it was a story that belonged to all of humanity. As people continued to explore space, they knew that the universe held many secrets. The Draconian fleet was one of the greatest, a reminder that Earth was never truly alone. The Watchers in orbit had waited for a long time, and they would wait longer if they needed to, because in the vastness of space, patience was a powerful thing, and the story was far from over.